So, thank you so much for having me here, Raphael. It's very cool to be here. I'm fairly new to Israel. I'll tell you a little bit about me shortly. But one thing I want to open with, I'm not a developer. So initially, when Raphael asked me to chat to you guys here, I was wondering about what on earth I can talk about. So I thought, well, I work with a lot of developers very closely, and I work with a lot of customers very closely, and I've often found a huge gap in how development and customer support works together. And so that's what I'm really going to chat about. This feedback loop is about product development based on your customers. So let's dive in here. A little bit about me. I'm from MadMimi. I'm one of the owners of MadMimi. I was one of the owners of MadMimi, and I am a recent transplant to Israel from Hawaii. And in July of 2014, GoDaddy acquired MadMimi, and I moved to Israel. So I'm Director of Online Support for GoDaddy and MadMimi's Chief of Culture. So that's cool. I'll try and maintain my focus here. Great. So feedback loop really is, I'd like to chat about what happens when a customer has an issue. And I'm not talking about an issue with something small, like they don't like someone's tone. I'm talking about when a customer has a real, genuine issue, a bug. And it's a room full of developers. You know that no matter what you do, customers are going to find a way to break your product every single time. They're unique. Everyone uses your product in a unique way, and you can try and hit as many situations as possible, but it's impossible. You will never, ever nail every single edge case. But at MadMimi, we try and account for it. We try and solve everything on an individual basis. Our customer support is, I'd like to say, legendary in a very small segment. But we take customer support very seriously, and this feedback loop is how, after a few years of struggling to let our developers remain focused on product development and building the features that they wanted to build and coding, as well as making sure our customers end up happy. So we struggled for a long time to find balance between our customer focus and development. Every time we had an issue, we'd bug a developer, the developer would get distracted, and the customer would get slow results, and the developer would be pulled away from the stuff they were working on. And so we found this system after a lot of trial and error, and after a couple of years, it seems to be working just fine. So the problem is the bugs came in, but solutions could take time because the developers had their heads down. As I'm sure you can all appreciate, none of you coding like to be interrupted about some small unique edge case. But at the same time, when we let our developers just get on and code, support felt ignored, and most of all, our customers felt like we weren't taking them seriously. And that's a huge problem for me. So as you can see up here on my slide, the developers felt nagged and distracted, our customers felt frustrated, and we're constantly trying to juggle between solving these issues and building new features and improving the product. So the solution is a loop. And this looks fairly simple, but implementing it actually was a slow process. It's a little bit Kanban-ish, and it takes a little bit of time to get used to. But essentially, you'll see here, it starts with the customer. The customer makes a complaint, brings up something that's on their mind, talks to support. You'll see underneath that big arrow over there, there's a little loop there. The support team is constantly in touch with the customer, but they kick something up to the developer. It seems fairly obvious right now, and we'll get into why it's a little bit more interesting shortly. But then the developer kicks something back to support. Support kicks it back to the customer when it's solved. That seems very, very simple and basic, but I'm pretty sure all of you are aware that it doesn't always work that way. So here's a very quick example. We use Pivotal Tracker to track all our bugs as well. And it's a simplistic example of us adding something to Pivotal Tracker for developer responding, and us updating our customer. Basic, but it took us about 4 years to do this. We tried Google Docs, we tried just real time. Nothing seemed to work until we used Pivotal Tracker, but that's really not, Pivotal Tracker as a tool is incidental to this whole thing. So the reason a loop is important is because it makes sure that there's this never-ending cycle of working with your customers. And again, I know developers have always felt that they should be allowed to focus. And I agree, developers should indeed need to focus, but customers and support, we really need to always keep that in mind too. So a loop where customers and support and developers all respected is important, and is only possible if there's a clear responsibility to the customer. And that means the customer needs to be updated every single day. And we need to solve things permanently. So there's also clear responsibility to you guys, to developers. And that means support needs to be held to a really high standard of reporting bugs. That means before anything gets to a developer, it needs to be tested. It needs to be described accurately. It needs to, we actually use screencast to video all bugs, recreate them before kicking it up to a developer. And then finally, there's a clear responsibility to support. Developers need to communicate to customer support in a way that they can then communicate to a customer. And this is something that I'd really urge all of you guys to pay attention to. For years, we'd get technical answers back. And I don't know how many of your own customer support teams are made up of developers, but ours is not. So it's important for you guys to communicate in clear language that can be passed on to support. And then support feels respected. They feel that they can get issues solved on customers' behalf quickly and fully. It's an important aspect, right, to think about customer support as who developers are responsible to. Many developers feel responsible to their project managers, to the CEO, to the product, but in actual fact, you guys are actually responsible to customer support. They're the guys who can fulfill two roles in your company. They can fulfill a role of product development, of learning from customers, of getting a killer NPS score going, of generating viral word-of-mouth growth. Or they can be a whipping boy. They can be people who just get yelled at by customers. And this is designed to make sure that they fulfill that first role, not the second role. So in order for this to actually work well, there needs to be a few ground rules set, and the one ground rule that we found really worked is one point of developer contact. That means customer support only ever talks to one developer, and that developer is the same developer every single day. And that way, there isn't this sort of mess of developers being distracted by random people. One developer means that every other developer can maintain clear focus and a clear chain of escalation. Second of all, our project manager stays happy because we're not undercutting her each time we have something to say. The second thing that's super important is to time box absolutely everything. And the main reason we time box everything is it lets us know when we're slipping. Every single day for support, we have a 2-hour time limit on focusing on this stuff. And if we don't meet our goals in 2 hours, we stop regardless. And that's really hard. It's hard to say, well, we'll just give 10 more minutes or 15 more minutes or 20 minutes, but it keeps adding up. And until we time boxed it, stuff would take 3 hours, 4 hours. But as soon as we set that 2-hour limit, we found that it was actually much easier to complete everything in 2 hours. It forced us to not go down rabbit holes. It forced us to stay focused. We also have a 24-hour turnaround. What I mean by that is not that every bug is solved in 24 hours, but we update every customer every 24 hours on the status of their issue, and not in a ticket system in a formal way. We just shoot them a note and say we're still on it. We often describe the issues the developers are facing in solving this, which allows our customers to really respect the effort we're putting in here. Which brings me to another thing. Every developer works super hard, but customers never see that. By setting up this feedback loop and communicating an update every single day on every single issue, we're able to communicate the struggles and the challenges that the developers are facing on our customers' behalf. And that's something that has really it changed the whole tone of a complaint from anger to respect. And from a developer perspective, we try and stick to about 20 minutes per issue. Some of these things are simple. Some of these things are edge cases that with a little bit of effort we can solve quickly. Some of it is a little bit more complicated, and that gets kicked a little bit down the road. So again, customers updated every day. And happy customers means everyone can work without pressure. Again, I don't know how much interaction each of you guys has in your own company, but when you have stressed out customers, that stress always trickles upwards. It trickles to customer support, it trickles to you guys, it trickles to your project managers, and it trickles all the way up to the CEO, and then anger trickles back down. So we report often. Every single day, one person on customer support, the guy who did that 2-hour time box, writes a report of how many issues we started with, how many issues were solved the previous day, how many issues were left behind. It's extremely important to do this daily report. It lets everyone have their finger on the pulse of where we are, where the company is. And the developers have a weekly review with that one point of developer contact. So it allows us to make sure that where our feature development is going is in line with what our customers want. So the first step, escalation to a developer. The customer writes in, support kicks it up to the developers when it's something support can't solve. All the customer details are shared, description of the issue is given in detail, and any additional notes. By writing everything down, the support team starts to respect developers a lot more. They're not these magical beings that keep screwing up things that make the customer support team's life harder. In fact, they start to realize how complex the job is. Support also notes the urgency to the developer. The developer gets to hear the customer's perspective, and anything that needs to be improved from a customer support standpoint on the developer's behalf gets flagged. So if the developer is not getting good information from the support team, this is the opportunity for the developer to initiate some training. So here's an example. I don't know how clearly you can see it, but this is actually one where the customer support team didn't do enough. And if you can see down in the bottom, the developer adds a slightly tongue-in-cheek response that highlights that this was something that could have been solved without them. The beautiful thing about this is that that support rep won't do this again. And we've just removed a common query from the developer's plate. So the second thing, every single day we prioritize. Developer starts by reviewing all the reported issues, handles urgent first, and then the repeated bugs are grouped together. And the beauty of this, once we had that one point of contact, we didn't have 3 developers working in their own little spaces on the same issue. This allows this one point of contact to compile all similar issues into one space and focus on it. So now we're at the bug crushing spot, right? So after 15 minutes of prioritizing, the developer can work through stuff at their own pace, can choose what to work on first, can ask anyone on the team for help. So in MadMimi, what we've done is the customer is the top of the pyramid, not the CEO, not the CTO, but the customer. Then underneath that is dealing with the customers. So if a developer needs help from anyone in the company to solve something, they can. They can also, and this has been really, really useful, is they can pass on issues that will be a good learning opportunity for new team members on the development team. So whenever we need to train someone on the product from a code standpoint, we put them on this area. And then if more detail is needed, the developer can kick it back to support for QA. Also, the developer can flag it for further review. So step 4 is communicate. The developer communicates anything needed with the project manager or the team, and this means that we are never in doubt as to what our most pressing issues are with regards to our customers. We never need to wonder where our next development needs to go. So a project manager can add tasks to the roadmap. We can educate support on areas of improvement. We learn where training needs to improve from a support standpoint. But since we've done this, we've also begun to realize design flaws. We've found a lot of design flaws. We've figured out areas where our customers are regularly confused. This has been an amazing way to make sure that our product stays user-friendly. Our UX and UI is awesome, and our customers are super happy. And I have a quote here, which I'll read out from someone on our support team. Becca says, devs are also great at noticing when a similar issue comes up often enough and adding tools so that we can fix things ourselves. And she gives a few examples there of things that our developers built for our customer support team that would never have happened without this feedback loop. And Susan, our project manager, says requests coming through the dev doc, which is what we actually internally call our feedback loop here, also helps us learn what features we need and prioritize them. So step 5 is to update everyone all the time. I can't stress this aspect enough. I don't know, quick show of hands. How many of you guys in your daily work update your customer support team so they can update customers on where features are at? 3. Did I miss anyone there? A room full of developers, and only 3 of you guys communicate with your customers through the support team. And you know, I'd strongly recommend changing that. It's something that makes sure that everyone respects the hard work that you guys do. So support updates every single customer who had a bug. If it's not resolved, they get an update anyways, every single day. And one thing that we learned that's also super useful is we rotate on the support team who handles those updates every day. And Becca says, again, something I find really helpful about rotating who handles these responses is that we all get a first-hand look at solutions. Handling responses directly from developers helps us better troubleshoot and diagnose issues on our own. So by constantly communicating with your support team, you'll actually ease your own load and end up with a better support team that can start troubleshooting the basic things before it ever gets to a developer. And this keeps customers happy. No one ever feels neglected. So step 6 is report. This is very similar to communicating. The support rep writes a report every single day that goes to the entire company. Everyone in the company knows what bugs are occurring, knows how we're doing at smashing these bugs. They know the details of how many come in versus how many go out. They know everything as it pertains to our customers and creating a beautiful user experience. So we all know the common areas that we can improve of as a team. We all understand the frustration that developers feel when things aren't communicated appropriately, and we all understand the frustration that support feels when there's too many bugs. So bottom line here is that there's results to this stuff. Developers, because we have one point of contact, are able to actually stay focused on building a product that's awesome. That means one person is smashing these bugs, everyone else plays a mild support role while building cool features. Developers and product team feel connected to our customers because they hear from them. Every single day, our developers are hearing the voice of our customer. And that means that when we build a new feature, we're not building it based on guesses or assumptions, we're building it based on absolute direct feedback. And this third point that I think is really important, this is my most serious, my favorite point of all, is support feels like the developers have their back. I started in customer support. Customer support is it's the lifeblood of any company that deals with consumers, whether it's a consumer-based or enterprise-based company. And if support feels left out, if support feels like all they're there is to be the kind of person who just gets yelled at and says sorry, then you're not going to have a happy team. Your customers are going to get offhand answers. You're going to get a lot of complaints on Twitter. But if support feels like they're respected, if support's job feels to them like it matters because the developers are listening to them and solving their problems and building tools for support to solve problems, then you're going to have a face of your company, a voice of your company that's always positive, that's motivating, that's reassuring. And I guess, this last point should probably be my most favorite, but I feel like a support guy always. But customers never feel forgotten. This feedback loop of every single day connecting to a customer from the developer's standpoint means our customers feel that you guys or our guys or developers are working on their behalf. And that really matters. They never feel forgotten. And what this has done is it's driven a culture where our customers go out and tell a friend. So, a good case in point, since we started doing this, our NPS score has gone through the roof. And does anyone know what an NPS score means? Okay, a couple of people, I'll explain. NPS score is a scientific way of rating how likely it is for a customer to recommend you to a friend. I mean, that's pretty much the basis of any company growth. Will someone use your product and recommend you? And since we started implementing this, more and more customers started recommending us to their friends. Unprompted, unbidden, they pick up the phone and they call someone and say, stop using competitor, start using Mad Mimi. So I'm going to leave you with a couple quotes, and then obviously if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. So our project manager summed this up in a really, really neat way. She says, the system has an impact on morale on both the dev team and support teams. If everyone is communicating clearly and doing it correctly, the support team ends up feeling heard, and the dev team can feel like they're getting the info they need to maintain the app. On the flip side, if issues sit for a long time, the support team can feel ignored, as well as having to deal with impatient customers. If issues are being sent to the developers without proper research, or that could have been handled without developer help, then it's discouraging to the dev team, who can feel like the support is passing off their jobs onto developers. So if it's done right, the impact is positive for everyone. And that's from Susan, a project manager. And that's it. I'm happy to take any questions. Yes, I see a question back there.
You mentioned it's a single developer that's handling the
Yeah.
How do you deal with that developer maybe wanting to do product or other stuff? Basically, it would take his entire day even if he delegates.
For sure. So we've tried two ways, and they actually both work quite well. The first way is every developer would be that one point of contact for a week. We tried for a day, but that was actually too short of a time span. And we then switched to a week, so every developer spends a week focusing on this. We try to figure it out which developer would do it based on longer term projects and things like that, but a week was a good time frame. However, after about 6 months, it evolved that there was one developer who just loved smashing bugs. And so for us, he focuses on that 90% of the time. You can't have him. Cool. Any other questions? Yeah.
How many of you work in your company?
On our team now, we have about 36 people. 25 on the customer support team, 10 developers. Anything else? All right. Then thank you guys all so much for listening. It's been really awesome. Okay. Sorry, hold your applause.
How can you focus the customer care to
It's a process. So you can't get that great information on day one. Basically, because we do this feedback every single time. And by feedback loop, I don't mean from customer through developer back to customer. There's a feedback loop also from support to developer back to support. Every single individual that doesn't give the right details gets trained on how to give the right details for that issue. So after a couple months, you start finding the details improve more and more and more because it stops getting kicked back to them. They stop getting educated on the better way to handle something. So again, it's a series of constant feedback to each person on how to make small improvements on their reporting and communication.